For a child, you're looking for that safety. And if you don't have that 50% of your livelihood, of your life, it really does change the way that you operate. We're getting right into it. It was messy.
Holy shit, Lyndsay. Did we have the same childhood?
I always felt like I had to show my value constantly for people to want to accept me. Audience, buckle up, because this was a biggie. If I can look okay and everyone thinks that I'm okay, it must not be that bad. It was the worst case scenario that manifested. The only relief that I got was when I was flat in my bed at night. I was just so scared. It was the catalyst that set this all in motion so that I could be like, okay, you're ready to hit rock bottom now. And I said, I can't leave here until you get me a brain MRI. It's going to be on you if I die, basically. And he was just like, I'm really trying to figure out how to say this to you, but I 1000% think that it is purely, and I was in denial for denial and anger hung out with me for probably a solid 6 months to a year. I ended up being hit with 3 diagnoses in 1 year. And I think this is going to hit home for a lot of people because I still feel like this is the hardest part I just had the chills when you said that, because the perfectionism and the people pleasing that protected me from such a young age is no longer serving me in adulthood. This is doomsday. I'm never going to crawl out of this hole. This is my new identity. And who does he think that he's about to marry? This is the messy truth. And I would say this for anyone who's listening who might be in a little bit of a negative place. So I needed to figure out, how do I discern and choose something different that's been my default for so long? That is such a good question. And if I'm being so honest, asking someone to figure out how to help themselves when they're in the darkest place is just not feasible. I'm going to say this to you in the most loving way, but you're not that important, sweetie. Nobody thinks about you like you think about you.
And you just shared recently that you have some big news.
I do.
Hey, this is Hollis, and welcome to the messy truth of transformation, where it's okay to be magical and messy. This isn't your typical personal growth podcast. Around here, we talk about the real stuff, the raw, the honest, the shadow work, the spirals, the breakthroughs, and the beautiful chaos of becoming who you were always meant to be. If you've ever felt alone on your healing and growth journey, or you wondered why it feels hard even when you're doing the work, you're not crazy, and you're definitely not alone. Let's dive into the messy truth of what it actually takes to transform your life. In this week's pod episode, I'm sitting down with Lyndsay Gilson. She's an occupational therapist, a mindset and life transformation coach, and business owner of Embody You, which helps high-achieving women manage their primary stressors and mindset barriers to level up in their personal, professional, and business life, as well as their wellness goals and beyond. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Messy Truth of Transformation. Hi, Lyndsay.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. I am so excited to dive into your story in this podcast, because I think your story is so freaking relatable to so many people.
Isn't it funny? It's kind of like, it's unfortunately relatable, but it's also beautiful at the same time.
Totally. So I was just telling Lyndsay before I hit record that I got little sleep last night. So if this episode I go a little off the rails, that's the messy truth. When I have lack of sleep, my brain doesn't function at its peak capacity, but sometimes it makes for a lot of fun, because I can get really goofy and silly. So who knows where this episode is going to lead us, Lyndsay.
Hey, we're here for it. We are in it.
Awesome. So where I always like to start for anyone tuning in that has no idea who Lyndsay Gilson is, thank you for being here, number one. And number two, I would love to start with the first 10 years of Lyndsay's life. What did that look like? And how did that shape who you are today?
Oh, that's such a big question. It's such a beautiful question. I think a lot of times we don't give that part of our lives that much attention anymore, especially in adulthood. We're just always thinking about the future and where we're at now. So, 0 to 10 Lyndsay. She grew up in Salem, Virginia. It's a really small town in Southwest Virginia. And my parents divorced when I was about 4. And so I feel like that really shaped a lot of who I am and how I came to be. And again, that's not saying that I'm not out here saying divorce is the worst thing in the world, but as a kid, it really does shape a lot of your experiences. And a part of that too, a lot of what I went through is I went from 7 days at my mom's house and 7 days at my dad's house until I was 18. And
Wow.
so I know. I lived out, it's a sad joke, but I do joke now that I lived out of an LL Bean like green duffel bag, like truly.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was me and my brother. My brother, we're thick as thieves now, but it was just us two at the time. And we traveled back and forth forever. And I think the hard thing that shapes me a lot is through being and growing up with divorced parents. They had different relationships. My parents are both divorced and remarried, obviously. And the remarriages, there were some times where, especially with my dad's relationship, one of his previous relationships, my ex stepmother was with me for 15 years before
Wow.
they ended up getting divorced. And it really shaped me. It made my voice really small. It was a very
Yeah.
tumultuous relationship.
Yeah.
And you think about as a kid growing up, that's every other week you have
Yeah.
that. Like that is
Yeah.
life shaping. That's
Yeah.
life changing. And so I find at that point in time, I was really trying to figure out, how do I just keep the peace? How do I make people like me?
Mm.
How do I, you know, show value and
Mm.
receive love in the best
Mm.
way? Because so much of the time I was just getting rejection from her specifically, not necessarily from my two parents. But at the same time, for a child, you're looking for that safety. And if you don't have that 50% of your livelihood, of your life, it really does change the way that you operate. It's especially heading into adulthood. So I feel like that zero, I would say 5 to 10 were really
Mm.
tough. I
Mm.
really, even getting into that 12 to 13 range,
Yeah.
as a teenage girl,
Totally.
it was tough because I
Yeah.
couldn't figure out, what am I missing? Like,
Mm.
why am I struggling so much
Mm.
to relate to half the side of my family and
Mm.
feel safe, but not want to be at my dad's house, but want to be with my mom all the time? It was just really,
Wow.
really challenging. So a lot of people pleasing
Yeah.
came from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also will say, as a child and into adolescence, I wasn't the type of, I very much resonate with being a high achiever and a high performer. But at that time, I would never have thought of myself as that because I had to work so much harder than my brother did for
Mm.
grades in school. Or even my best friend, I remember I
Mm.
was like, gosh, do you ever study? Like, I'm
Mm.
literally on Sunday nights, like glued to my
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I had to work so hard so
Yeah.
often to
Yeah.
prove my worth to people as
Wow.
well. So, we're getting right into it. It was
We're getting ready.
messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. No kidding. So how
Yeah.
did that I mean, holy shit, Lindsay. Did we have the same childhood? I mean, you could have copy and pasted your story onto mine. No kidding. That's wow. Holy
I'm
moly.
sure a lot of people feel that. The
100%.
clients that I work with, I feel like, a lot of times we
Yeah.
attract who we are. We
Totally.
are the client. And,
Totally.
I very much know that story resonates with a ton of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did that then shape, because obviously we know going into teenage years, as you said, can be a roller coaster of a ride, because that's when we really start playing out all those patterns. So what was your teenage years like for you?
Oh, they were challenging to say the least. I feel like it was the kind of thing where I've always had a very strong core group of friends that I grew up
Mm,
in my hometown, but I do remember feeling such a hard, I don't know, like a hard shift in how to figure out how to feel aligned with each group that I was in. Like, do
mm,
I fit in here? Do they really like me for me?
yeah,
Do I need to be a certain way in order to find that value? And I know that started from my home. I know that started from my upbringing, from my childhood. These kids, we're all out here just being kids
totally.
doing the same thing
Yeah,
that we feel we were either taught or modeled because we don't know
yeah,
anything different.
yeah,
And so I do feel like I had a lot of struggles with certain friendships
yeah,
moving throughout that adolescent period because I just didn't really know where I fit. I couldn't
yeah.
figure out who I am. I also think, sidebar here, I
Yeah.
do think that's a little bit of being an adolescent in general, right?
Totally.
Like our
Yeah, yeah,
brain's
yeah.
not even fully
Yeah.
developed
Yeah.
yet. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can see now as an adult the
Yeah.
similarities and the correlations in the feelings, the really strong feelings I had of not being super connected to any one group or trying so hard to fit in because I always felt like I had to show my value constantly for people to want to accept me, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. Perfect sense. So how did that then, I mean, obviously you get out of high school, you start like adulting and you get into the adult world, and it sounds like overachieving was like the next sort of step into Lindsay's life. Is that fair to say?
Oh, for sure. I feel like, the people pleasing, the perfectionistic tendencies, it was just prove my value and my worth, not just to myself, but mainly to other people and what I was doing in the world. And I remember at a time where I was thinking about going to college, I was like, what am I going to do? This is the biggest question in the world, which I know, again, a lot of people feel this because it is so heavily weighted. But at the same time, I was like, I better pick a good one or it's not going to be accepted. By
Mm,
who? I don't know who I was thinking,
mm,
other than I guess my parents potentially. Um, but I know the harder thing for me too is I didn't feel that I aligned with being someone who had a lot of book smarts, and math and science were like my truly worst subjects.
mm,
And so for me, I remember specifically thinking like I need to choose a career path that just deals with people, that doesn't have a lot of
mm.
science, doesn't have a lot of math. Like I'm not going to be going into business. I don't have that kind of brain. I was kind of already like shooting myself in the foot before
Right.
even figuring out what I even felt like I wanted to
Inclined
do.
to do.
Yeah, and it did end up working out because I ended up becoming an occupational therapist and getting my master's in that. But I do remember that being super hard and scary making that leap because I didn't know anyone else that was going into like that type of health science field and that type of like caregiving field in that way and that healthcare professional side. Everyone else I knew was in finance or in business.
Mm,
And so there was a lot of disconnect and
mm,
relatability and trying to figure out who am I going to become as an adult?
mm,
And I say I'm going to become an OT, but what is that even going to look like 5
mm,
years from now?
mm.
So yeah.
So what pulled you into my sister has her master's in OT.
Oh my
So
gosh,
what
love.
yeah, what do you feel like was the pull in that direction? Cuz that feels like more like sciency.
It is, and it was a challenge, I will say. I don't know,
Yeah.
hopefully your sister had a lot easier time because, like, these again, I went towards something that was challenging for me, but at the center of everything, I wanted to help people.
Mm,
Like, I
mm,
wanted to be a helping
mm,
professional,
mm,
and I remember sitting down, I will say, my guidance counselor or my
mhm,
mentor, my advisor in college was really
mhm,
helpful with this because
mm,
I told her, "I just wanna be with people I wanna help." So what I did is I went the psychology route
mm,
and then I went the, education route because I thought
mm,
I wanted to work with, like, maybe become a teacher or work with kids. And then I was like, "You know what? I could blend both and I could be a child psychologist." Beautiful, right? But knowing that I already had all these people-pleasing tendencies and a chronic empath in myself, very quickly did I learn how much I would be taking all of that stuff home. And so I was trying to find a path where it created a little bit of a barrier for me in a helpful
mm,
way to where I could protect
mhm,
myself. And
mm,
so my advisor asked, have you ever thought about doing any of the therapies like speech therapy,
mm,
physical therapy, occupational therapy? And I was like, no, but I will go shadow. So I
mm,
shadowed a speech language pathologist for 100 hours and I was like fascinated, truly fascinated by this profession, loved it. But I did feel super intimidated and some sort of disconnect. But on my very last day of shadowing her, my entire patient caseload canceled, which was only 3 because it was like an afternoon. And I ended up shadowing just going to the OT, and I was like, it clicked. It's so much more hands-on. It felt more like, yes, this type of independence, I can, there's just more movement involved, more of the body.
yeah.
Um, I'm more connected to this. So I went back to my advisor and obviously was like, yo, girl, you put me in the wrong one. I just did 100 hours in speech therapy, and now I want to be an OT. And she was like, isn't that what the point of this was?
Right,
To
right.
figure out your direction, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely I think the
Okay.
that's where that kind of segued. Knowing
Yeah.
I wanted to be
Yeah.
a helping professional,
Yeah.
and then my advisor really kind of actually helping shape the direction that I went, and then having
Mm,
that beautiful internship experience
mm,
is what
mm.
helped me get to that.
Wow. Amazing, because my daughter and I talk about this all the time, like the lack of exactly what your guidance counselor or mentor gave you in school is like, let's just try these different routes and see what
Mhm.
really resonates. And before you go spend all this money, like figure out kind of what you love to do, what you could see yourself doing, all those things. That's, I mean, that's really, really amazing to have had that.
It totally was, and I will say, your daughter probably feels similarly depending on her age, but it's hard being in the hustle culture. We just also want that instant gratification of just being told or just knowing, and so
Totally.
we hate the trial and error
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that's why
Yeah.
I even had
Yeah.
such a bad attitude coming
Yeah.
back to my advisor because I was like,
Yeah.
"Girl, you messed me up here." And she was like, "Lindsay, you literally found your path.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
you're fine."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you found your path.
Mhm.
Great. You embark on this journey, and it's feels like maybe something that you were meant to do, and you're loving it. And then in 2017, I believe it
Mhm.
was, I think the quote was, your body called your bluff. Is that your words?
Yeah, yeah.
And it sort of you had a quote unquote wake up call, it sounds like. So I would love for you to share with the audience what happened with that wake up call.
I sure did, and audience buckle up because this was a biggie, and
Yeah.
I always say this was my rock bottom year, like,
Mm.
and it's so funny to think back on this too because that was also the year I got engaged to my
Oh,
husband.
wow. Wow.
I know, I don't even think I mentioned that to you, but, like,
Yeah.
there were so many beautiful things that were
Mm.
happening in that time period. I had
Mm.
the best of friends, and this is when I was living in Boston. I loved the people that I worked with. I
Wow.
worked at a really amazing small skilled nursing facility, and I
Wow.
loved so much of my life. You would think everything was okay, right?
Yeah.
But the rock bottom aspect of it, I realized how much these patterns had been not just from becoming an OT and taking home all my co-working struggles. I'm just, like I said, I'm a chronic empath, and I definitely suffered a ton from that compassion fatigue. And I did take it home with me. Little did I know that I was probably gonna do that in any form or fashion because I hadn't figured out how to understand how I was operating with the
Mm.
people pleasing tendencies, with the compassion fatigue, with like not having any type of healthy emotional coping and outlets, honestly.
Mm.
And with being that overachiever too, like that's on now I'm functioning on steroids essentially of just pushing all my feelings down. I would have never known that that was what I was doing at the time because I
Mm.
truly was like I remember saying this to one of my best friends at the time. If I can look okay and everyone thinks that I'm okay, it must not be that bad. Like, it truly
Mm.
must not be that bad.
Mm.
And so even though I felt like there was this underlying buzz or hum or something, I was very clearly just on autopilot. And so one day in a clinic, I was having this really, really aggressive conversation. Not aggressive, but just like it to me, it was like aggressive to my soul because I had been dealing with one of my coworkers' personal family struggles, or just talking through it with her for a long time about symptoms that she was seeing from her son, and I was getting worried that she wasn't taking the route to go get neurological support or an evaluation for him. And I said, well, I dropped a one line so aggressively. I don't even remember. I remember standing in the parallel bars and just like putting my hands and being like, if you don't go and get an evaluation, like God forbid he has brain cancer or a tumor or something like that. And we ended up being fine. She was like, okay, I hear you. I clearly I understand what you're saying. I've been talking about this for months. Like I need to actually do something about this and stop chalking this up. Little did I know, and did she know, it did end up becoming that. It was the worst case scenario that manifested for her situation, and I just took that on. Like, I mean, it was truly like that. Like you feel the rock at the bottom of your gut where you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said something like that. Was it my fault? Was that a
Sure.
self-fulfilling prophecy that I just put out there in the universe? I was thinking about her day and night, thinking about him day and night. I mean, I became obsessive. I started perseverating on
Wow.
this so aggressively. 2 weeks later, I all of a sudden wake up and I just start feeling off balance. And people are like, oh, is it vertigo? And I was like, no, no, no. It was just like, you kind of felt like, I don't know if you drink or anything, but like you're slightly intoxicated when you're
Mm,
turning corners and you're just easy to tip
yeah.
over a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how it felt.
Wow.
And it progressively was getting a little bit worse.
Mm,
I think now that I was paying attention to it, and it started affecting my work because hello, I'm literally physically handling people and lifting
mm.
them, and it was a safety contraindication at this point if I'm going to
Wow.
continue doing my job. And this persisted for a month, to the point where the only relief that I got was when I was flat in my bed at night,
Wow.
eyes closed. And so my husband said, again, I feel like I dissociated for a lot of this
Mm,
period,
mm,
but my now husband, my fiance then, he said that he just said that I was like a muted shell
mm,
version of myself. Like
mm,
I didn't talk when I was home.
mm.
I didn't I was had blank stares. Like now I'm looking and I'm like, I clearly was so depressed and so in my head and I just didn't know what was going on. And I think I was just so scared that what I had come to light from my coworkers' family was going to then manifest for me.
And do you think at this time, Lyndsay, was it just because of that, or was it a kind of a culmination?
Culmination
Okay.
1000%.
Yeah.
At that time, I was just like, I thought I was had a brain freaking tumor. I
Yeah.
convinced myself of that at that point.
Yeah.
But now looking back, doing all the work that I've done, it is so obvious that that moment in time was just a catalyst. It was the catalyst that like set this all in motion so that I could be like, okay, you're ready to hit rock bottom now and you're ready to
Wow.
figure this out. And so I remember I'm chuckling because it's just wild what your brain where
Yeah.
you can go when you're in a
Yeah.
dark place like that.
Yeah.
I started getting all this blood test done. I went to several different doctors. I
Mm.
left certain doctors because I didn't feel like they were hearing me and listening to what
Wow.
I had to say. And I'll never forget this. I only saw this doctor one time and he did all my testing. And I said, I can't leave here until you get me a brain MRI. Like, I've gone to two other people. I need you to do that for me. I truly, it's going to be on you if I die, basically. I mean, I was so aggressive about it.
And
And
you because you thought you had a brain tumor.
oh, 1000% thought I had a brain
Wow.
tumor because it had persisted for a month. I was
Mm.
now, it was affecting my work. It was
Mm.
clearly affecting my relationship at home and how I was as a human.
Yeah.
And I was keeping it all locked inside. And
Yeah.
so he looked me dead in the face and he was just like, I'm really trying to figure out how to say this to you in a nice way, but I 1000% think that it is purely anxiety and poorly managed stress. And the only way that I will agree to giving you an MRI referral is if you agree to at least going to do 6 months of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Well, bless his freaking heart, man.
Bless his heart. I mean, it's so
Wow.
I do.
That's not the common thing you hear from doctors.
I mean, I think
Wow.
he was just trying to get me out of his office at that point. I'm in there. I'm like throwing demands like I have a right to be in telling him what to do. I mean, it was ridiculous. It's so embarrassing thinking
Wow.
back to it, but I just was at a loss. And I was like, I mean, I threw up my hands and was like, fine, sign me up. I'll go. And he was like, once I see your appointment is scheduled in our system, I will go ahead and do the referral. So I go ahead and start cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm funny. Fast forward, you guys. I'm still with her today. I'm still with the
Oh,
same therapist.
awesome.
And we constantly talk about my path to get to where I am now. And she's
Yeah.
just like, do you remember coming in and like dropping your bag and crossing your arms and crossing your legs and
Wow.
sitting in the seat and said, my doctor made me come here.
Wow. Wow. At that
But,
point,
oh, go ahead.
had you thought like maybe this is just a lot? No.
Absolutely not. You guys
Wow.
can't see me shaking my head right now, but there was not 1 ounce that thought that he was right. And it is just so wild because in my head, I'm playing back how I operate,
Yeah.
just as a normal human being, and I'm like, "I have a good life. I have a great
Yeah.
job. I
Yeah.
have people who love me. I love my
Yeah.
family. They're super
Yep.
supportive." Like, yes, every family's got their stuff, but at the end of the day, like, very supportive. I was like, I am a healthy individual. Like there's no way that this is
Mm.
anxiety. It has
Mm.
to be something wrong.
Mm.
And so I go, I'll never forget going to get the MRI at like 8:30 at night, like a week or so later, my husband in the waiting room. I'm in there in the machine, it's whirring around, and I'm literally like, how is my husband gonna face this? Like I remember just talking myself through all of these scenarios when I'm in there. And when I got the results back that said my brain was fine, I didn't believe them. I truly was still like, I mean, I guess I believed it, but I still felt like, well, then there's something else.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
bigger is at play here. Something
Yeah.
else is going on.
Yeah.
And, I'm reading these results to my therapist, who I
Yeah.
had to start seeing weekly. And I will tell you, I was in denial for denial and anger hung out with me
Mm.
for probably a solid 6 months to a year.
Wow. Wow.
hmm
Wow.
It resolved on its
Yeah.
own. It did
Wow.
resolve. So, like, I stopped feeling off balance, like, a few months later,
Yeah.
and that turned into chronic insomnia. So
Wow.
now moral of the story is, with all of this, you guys,
Yeah.
ended up being hit with 3 diagnoses in 1 year in 2017, and it was all chalked up to poorly managed chronic stress and
Mm.
repressing all of these emotional
Mm.
experiences. And my doctors all now say that I'm a hot reactor. Like
Mm.
my physiological
Mm.
symptoms really it manifests that way when I have stress. It manifests physiologically like a lot of people do, but they don't realize that's what's happening. And so I ended up with hypertension,
Oh my
generalized anxiety
gosh.
disorder, and chronic insomnia all in 1 year.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
And you were how old? Not that old.
No, 2017. What was that? I'm 35 now. Do the math.
So,
Remember I said
yeah,
that's not my thing.
28. Math's
28.
my thing. So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, 28 years old. So young.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Mhm.
With hypertension.
With hypertension. And
Wow.
again, like healthy individual, had really
Yeah.
great habits,
Yeah. Yeah.
nutrition,
Yeah. Yeah.
hydration, all the thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
do have a little bit of it hereditarily in my family, and I
Yeah.
do have situational high blood pressure even now. So I
Yeah.
am still constantly in this
Yeah.
messy middle of
Yeah. Yeah.
making sure that I am still doing the things I know support me in this
Yeah.
place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. So, in that next year of,
Mhm.
going through therapy and doing on this work on yourself, I would love for you to talk to us about understanding like the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the overachieving, like that is who Lyndsay was, or at least who you thought
Mhm.
you were. So, what really was the hardest part about sort of untangling all of that?
Oh, I think I think this is going to hit home for a lot of people because I still feel like this is the hardest part is letting go of that version of me who felt valuable for doing all the
Mm,
things. For
mm,
being able to be everything to everyone,
mm,
for being able to handle the chaos and the stress,
mm,
being the go-to person at work, being the go-to
mm.
friend who holds all the secrets, being the peacekeeper amid the family drama. Like letting go of that that felt like my whole identity. That
Yeah,
felt like that is how I'm valuable to other people. If I lose that, then who is Lindsay?
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Who's going to care about her? Like who
yeah,
is she with all this productivity stripped away?
yeah, yeah.
So I feel like that is definitely probably the hardest lesson in figuring
Mm,
out how to rebuild back. And
mm,
I think it's really hard because I mean, I do this all the time where I do give those types of I say I'm a recovering people pleaser.
mm,
I'm a recovering perfectionist,
mm,
right? Like we like to use the word recovering
mm.
because we still have those tendencies, we still have those defaults. But at the same time, I have this like bone to pick with the fact that we are still labeling ourselves, because as soon as
Sure.
we put that label on ourselves,
Yeah,
all of these habits and identities are tied into that. And then
absolutely.
what we think is what we believe, and what we believe is then how we act, right? And so I do feel like that is where the mindset work comes in. And that's why, that it was a huge reason for me starting my business once I got out of that dark hole, because the perfectionism and the people pleasing that protected me from such a young age is no longer serving me in adulthood, clearly.
Clearly. Yeah.
Mhm.
I would love to know if you're open to sharing j- so other people who are going through the same thing, can relate and understand. How did this affect your marriage? Was your husband
Yeah.
supportive in this process? Was he like, I mean, what was that like? What were the dynamics like as you're going through all this work? Because, like you said, when we change, we literally lose a part. We lose parts of ourselves
Yes.
and our identity. And yet, he fell in love with this person that was Lyndsay, right? So,
Mm.
how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I just had the chills when you said that, because he has said similar statements of that, where I have said to him years later, "How did you stay with me through that?" Like, or
Mm,
how did you? And he was just like, "I just talked to my parents. Like, I just was like, she's gonna get through this. We're gonna have to get through
mm,
this. Like, it's gonna be fine." He had such an optimistic outlook on it, where he was like, this is just a season, and once she gets more answers and once she gets more help, she will be fine.
wow,
Whereas for me, I was like, this is doomsday. I'm never
wow,
going to crawl out of this hole. This is my new identity. And who does he think that he's about to marry?
wow.
And there was just so much guilt. I think that was the hardest thing too, is like, even though I was in that depressed state, I had so much guilt, and it made me shut down even more to him, because I didn't
Mm,
even know how to express that.
yeah,
And so I would definitely say it took a toll on our not like our actual engagement. He will be the first to be like, "Oh, I never doubted you would come out of this." Where
yeah,
I did, though. I did
yeah,
doubt that. I
yeah,
doubted how we were gonna come away from this and be okay.
yeah.
And I think a lot of that too is, I do come, I had examples growing up of people leave, you know?
Mm, mm,
And he
mm,
didn't, which I think is
mm,
beautiful. Like, his
mm,
parents are still together. I
mm,
Again, this isn't about divorce, because I do
mm.
think that sometimes divorce is the answer for
Yeah,
certain people, right?
yeah, yeah,
But at the same time, that it still created for
yeah.
me, which I still talk about now, it's like I have two really beautiful parents
Mm,
who are in beautiful relationships now. However, I have still this fear of abandonment, or or and it's not because they've ever left me. It's just
yeah,
because there are time periods where I just did not feel safe.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm sure that's really hard to hear as a parent,
yeah.
right? When your
Yep,
child feels that way. And I don't think there's any way to get through childhood or adulthood thinking you're never going to mess up any
yeah,
of these things. This is the
totally.
messy truth.
Yeah,
And
yep,
it literally is the
yeah,
messy truth. So this is not a blame game.
yeah,
It's just a fact of life.
yeah.
But I find that, like, when talking with my husband, Ben, I'd be like, Ben, how are you this way? And he's like, Lindsay, I just believed in you. Like, I know
Mm,
who you are at your core. There is stuff that just messed all of this up right now. And it all came to a head. I didn't know when it was going to resolve, but I did believe you're strong enough to get through it. And I was like, thank God someone did. You
oh,
know?
oh, oh,
Yeah, he's the best.
amazing.
He's the freaking best.
Amazing. What a
Yeah.
lighthouse for
Oh, yeah.
other women out there that maybe don't think that they'll find somebody that would, sort of be in the messy middle with them and work through that and stay. That's
Mhm.
amazing. So I
Mhm.
know that you talk a lot now, and I'm sort of jumping y- to the next sort of place, the next phase in your journey.
Mhm.
You decided to start coaching, and a lot of that I know is based on nervous system regulation. And
Mhm.
for high achieving women that are perfectionists, I know for me that has been the most transformative thing out of the millions of tools that I've tested and tried regulating my nervous system. So, where do you start? with where did you start with yourself? Where did you have a moment where you're like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to feel like relaxed in my body or to feel safe in my body? How did you get there? And what is that
Mhm.
first step that you sort of walk women through? And then from there, we can talk about how did you make that leap from here is my identity as an OT. Now I'm stepping into the unknown as a coach.
Mhm. Yeah. You know, big question. Lots of inner work through this process. I will say my first starting point probably really was figuring out my negativity. Because
Mm,
I came out because remember, we're talking I'm still in the hole, like, at this
yeah.
point. I know that this isn't where I can be anymore, but I looked at, "Holy cow, I've been here for almost a year plus now where I just kinda had a negative outlook about everything. I
Mm,
took everything on.
mm,
I'm mad at myself,
mm.
I'm mad that I used to say this all the time, "Why can't I just pull my shit together?"
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was just, like, a
sure.
line I said constantly.
Yeah,
And so I think that anger and the way I woke up every day and just was pissed at my job and like
yeah.
mad that I'm helping all these people and they're complaining about like getting out of bed when I literally took everything in me to get out of bed to help them today. And so I think I just had a lot of anger and resentment and like negativity that I first and foremost had to work through. So I will say my therapist at the time really did kind of hone in a little bit more on those mindfulness practices. I remember still feeling a lot of resistance with that because
Mm,
mindfulness felt so woo woo, whereas my approach now is very much more like, oh my God, no, we can be mindful in all the ways. We just have to
mm,
figure out how it works in our lives. It doesn't have to
mm,
be like the woo woo, like on a yoga retreat and like you're in the zenest place ever. But that's how I started feeling like that is like, how can I, being so negative, how can I find a positive in this?
mm,
So I think the best bridge for me, and I would say this for anyone who's listening who
mm,
might be in a little bit of a negative place, is working through how to let both positive and negative sit at the table together. That
mm,
was probably
mm,
one of the biggest lessons for me that was really helpful at me being a little bit more mindful in the moment of what's going on in my head and what's also going
mm,
on in my life in real time. So,
mm,
if I did have the thought, let's say I'm going to use a client example
mm,
actually because I love this example.
mm,
She also used to be so angry all the time and negative, and
mm,
she hit a deer on her way home and she pulled over and she was just like super angry, obviously, because now she's late. She's doesn't know what damage to her car. But what she, instead of just staying there, which would have been so easy, she immediately went back to, well, thank goodness it wasn't a person.
mm,
Thank goodness I'm actually okay.
mm,
And
mm.
like, all right, at least we have another car. My husband and I, like, we have another. So she allowed there either to be neutrals or other positives that are
Yeah.
also existing, because I think the mindfulness aspect comes in when you can then decipher which one you're going to lean into.
Mm,
That's where the mindfulness really comes in. And so
mm,
I needed to figure out, how do I discern and choose something different that's been my default for so long?
mm, mm, mm. And so I mean, did you have daily practices like meditation?
Yeah,
Did you use things like that to
I sure did. And I
yeah.
will say this like was a game changer for me. I read this book called, I have it right here, called Stress Less, Accomplish More by
Mm.
Emily Fletcher.
Oh, I love her.
And um she's definitely taken a different route a little
Mhm.
bit more
Mhm.
now, but back then,
Mhm.
she was a Broadway performer. She really preaches like how to be a high achiever and high performer, and she
Yeah.
created this specific Ziva technique for
Yep.
meditation. So I
Yep.
ended up learning the Z technique through the book first and then taking her course to learn the Ziva technique to personalize it even more. Do I think everyone needs to do something like that? No.
Mm.
But did I
Mm.
need something to focus all of my hard
Mm.
attention on and feel like I was learning something to check off the box because that's that like high achiever in me?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So I was kind of like feeding my ego a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
Well, if
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
say that. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
honest. That's like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't going about it with the
Yeah.
best foot forward, I will say, because
Yeah.
otherwise I would have just been trying to listen to more guided meditations or just like take more mindful walks. I
What?
needed something to feel like, oh, I'm
Wow.
checking stuff off and I'm moving through. And this was
Wow.
actually came at the most monumental time for me. And it really was a game changer. So
Mm.
through that, and I also started using the 5-minute journal because I
Mm,
don't remember if my therapist recommended that per se, but knowing that it was only 5 minutes,
mm,
like a day, was really
mm,
helpful,
mm.
and that it was guided. So you just
Yeah.
like fill in, you just write what's up. That actually helped shift the negativity to a little bit more of that optimism or gratitude as well.
Wow. Wow. So when, after doing these different practices, how long did it take before you really started to feel like, I think I'm sort of almost like becoming a different person or moving from this darkness?
That is such a good question. And if I'm being so honest, I don't actually have the full answer for that.
Yeah.
I have tried asking my husband this too, because I'm
Yeah.
like, do you remember when the shift was? Because like
Yeah.
I use my wedding as the marker because we got married in 2018.
Okay.
And I'm like, I was so happy on that day, but I'm like, was it just the day because we were getting
Yeah.
married? Like it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's it's a little hard for me to
Yeah.
remember exactly because that
Yeah.
was just such a dissociative time period for
Yeah.
me. But I will say I do still think it probably took the better of another year
Yeah.
to get fully out.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, I took another dip after that. So after
Mm.
I was like killing it, feeling so
Yeah.
much better about my
Yeah.
job, I was like riding the high, felt like,
Yeah.
okay, I've got this therapy thing. Now all of a sudden I became like this little therapy ambassador.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
and I'm at work, like feeling like I'm handling things a lot better.
Mm.
I ended up doing 2 part-times instead of just this sole full-time. So I was starting to like change my energy and my schedule variables a little bit too
Yeah.
at this point,
Yeah. Yeah.
meaning I was being more mindful in the process. And
Yeah.
then COVID hits.
Mm.
So, now we're like after 3 years of the up and downs for me and I
Yeah.
had been on a high, I go to a pretty low with work
Yeah.
again
Yeah. Yeah.
because I mean, for anyone that was a first responder or in healthcare or in
Yeah.
education or anyone that was like in some sort of front line, like it was just such a shit show,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I feared my life every day walking because I was working
Wow.
on COVID units and it was
Yeah.
just, I was doing things that I never did. They did, the companies didn't care about you. You're in full garb 24/7. Like I was miserable
Wow.
and fearing for my life because of everything on the news about
Yeah.
the 30 some year olds that are dying in
Oh my
COVID units.
lord.
And so I will say, after a year of that,
Yeah.
working in 2020, because I never took time off, like I never got to be at home, I ended up being like, something's got to give. I ended up
Mm.
asking my therapist if we could take more of the life coaching route
Mm.
because I was like, I shouldn't be almost 10 years out. Well, I don't know. It was more like 8 at that point, almost 8 or 7 years out, thinking this was going to be my whole future professionally in
Mm.
occupational therapy. And I loved it so much. And now all of a sudden I hate it.
Mm.
I feel like I need to do something before I truly shoot myself in the foot and never
Mm.
want to help anyone ever again.
Totally. Totally.
And go back to that dark place because I started
Yeah.
having those like PTSD feelings
Mm.
of
Mm.
creep back in of the doomsday stuff. And so she ended up helping me kind of like do a little mind map to figure out, well, what different avenues I could go to. And I ended up choosing like a coaching and consulting route,
Mm.
doing a certification online course, which I didn't
Mhm.
necessarily have to because it does fall under wellness coaching, falls under the umbrella of therapy. But I wanted to learn more about not being the expert, but helping other
Mm.
people become their expert of
Wow.
themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah. Yeah.
motivational interviewing piece.
Yeah.
And so that was actually very helpful in that time period. I went to
Yeah.
part-time, and so that was, like, the start of my shift, but
Okay.
it wasn't just smooth sailing. So for you
Yeah.
guys that are like, "Oh, cool, she was in that really dark
Yeah.
period, and then she came out of it, and she's
Like
been
the happy
thriving," like,
ending. Yeah.
nope.
Yeah.
There there's none of that. There's been
Yeah.
lots of grief throughout this
Yeah.
process too,
Yeah.
personally, professional pivots that haven't
Yeah.
worked out, that are
Yeah.
now, like, so that is the messy truth of what
Yeah.
any type of journey actually looks like.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that kind of carried me to the up and down. And what I first focused on was more of that gratitude, getting out of the negative thinking, having both positive and negative sit at the table together. I feel like that was helping me lean into a little bit more of like that future focus and
Yeah. Yeah.
centeredness.
Yeah. Well, this is I'm excited to transition it more into the entrepreneurial journey because as an entrepreneur for the last 10 years, I know it gets so freaking messy.
Yes.
So messy. So,
Mhm.
when did you decide to go full time and how has that transition been for you?
So I started my business in 2021.
Uh-huh.
I felt like I couldn't cut the cord. I wasn't one of those people that ever was like, all right, I'm just going to
Burn
make
the
the choice to
boats.
go all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
truly couldn't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
kudos to you guys who can. I think it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
But again, I still was on a little bit of shaky ground with trying
Yeah.
to I was in dark place. If we think about this, 2017 wasn't that long ago. Like
Yeah.
we're almost at 2026, but like
Yeah.
a lot has happened within me and for me since
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, there's no way I can just go all in. So what I
Yeah.
ended up doing was working per diem. So for anyone that isn't in healthcare, that's just kind of like you're on call
Mm.
at a couple different facilities while I was doing my certification program and trying to at least have some beta testing clients. And fortunately, also at that time period, my husband and I were able to pay off our condo in Boston. And so not having a mortgage, all of a sudden I remember him then sitting me down and being like, Lindsay, is this going to be a side hustle or is this going to be a real thing? Because
Mm.
if you want this to be your thing, I actually think it's like this year or never. Like I think you got to he pushed me in the best way because he was like,
Wow.
we can afford for to be a one house income at
Yeah.
this, I mean, one income household at this
Yeah.
point of time
Yeah.
before we moved to Charleston. If you
Mm.
want to go all in on your business, like I'm here to
Wow.
support that. So I was like, I'm glad you have faith in me because I mean, I don't know, you know? And it was the best push that I needed. I like
Mm.
owe him everything truly because he has had unshakable confidence in me this whole time,
Wow.
which is a blessing in itself. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of people don't have that. So
Yeah.
for that, I just have to call it like I see it. Like that's the
Yeah.
one beautiful light beacon in this messy truth,
Wow.
if I can be honest. So
Yeah.
um that I probably went full time in 2022
Mm.
and have been full time since.
Wow.
Yes, and never looked back. Like I still
Uh,
have my OT license,
mm. Mm.
and I will be an OT forever. I also
Yeah.
have an OT business that is set up. I just am not like my business is plenty for what I've got going on right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't need that OT
Yeah.
business in order to stay afloat at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. So what has it been like helping people actually in what you went
Hmm.
through, because as an OT or anyone in the health field, you get trained, right? You go through
Hmm.
training, you get skills, you work with people, but not necessarily in something that you've experienced before, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
now you are literally working face to face with women that have experienced the same things as you. So
Hmm.
I would love to know the difference between what that feels like between those two things.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I feel like that has been the one beautiful thing when I think about being an OT. And again, I'm so grateful for all the patients that I've had and the trust that they've had in me. But they were there mostly because of an involuntary reason. Whereas now, these people that are coming into my circle from the coaching space, they're either at rock bottom and they're
Mm,
so like they're bleeding out and they're like, I know you've been through this. Please teach me the way. Or more of the people that I'm attracting now are going off the current vibe that I have. And they're like, I want to keep leveling up how you keep doing
mm,
this. Like, teach me
mm,
your ways. How do I be mindful? How do I be
mm.
intentional? How do I have boundaries in a way where I don't feel guilty? Like,
Yeah.
how do I overcome and leverage the perfectionism and overcome this people pleasing so that,
Yeah.
like, my relationship's better, my work life's better, my health and wellness goals are better, like all the
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
so, and in business too, right?
Yeah.
And so that voluntary shift for me has been such a beautiful connection where it's like, oh, these people are ready for
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that that's probably the most invigorating thing for me where it's like they
Totally.
come into my circle, I'm so jazzed up because
Yeah.
I'm like, I know you want to be here, from
Yeah.
years of
Yeah.
working with people who didn't want to be there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
knowing that their circumstances are what landed them there.
Yeah.
There's such a need for that, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much it would be
Yeah.
refreshing to finally be shifting to work with people that are like totally ready for their change.
Yeah. 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 And you just shared recently that you have some big news.
I do. I am pregnant, and biggest blessing in the world.
Yeah.
This is another messy truth, which I'm sure you've seen just from following me on social media, but I've had 3 miscarriages in the past year and a half, and this will be my first baby coming to earth side, God willing,
Mm,
right? To
mm,
make it all the way. And
mm,
this is another, when I said grief, I'm like, man, 2025 was like the year to test me. It has seemingly been the hardest year of my life
mm,
and the most blessed year of my life,
mm,
because it was the last miscarriage was the absolute hardest.
mm.
And also the time where I found out I'm also pregnant, and I'm
Wow.
24-ish weeks now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Exciting.
I
Your
know.
first,
But
I mean, your first, your first. Yeah.
it'll be 100% my first
Yeah.
baby, fully, and
Yeah.
Ben and we wanna be parents so bad,
Yeah.
and that's why we moved to Charleston, South Carolina 3
Wow.
years ago. So
Wow.
it's been a challenge when you move for a specific purpose. You guys know the perfectionistic tendencies. You're trying to control
Totally.
all the variables.
Totally.
You show up in the place to
Yeah.
expand your family, and then you're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
tapping your
Come
watch,
on,
like,
universe.
what's
You're like, yeah,
happening? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 And so, how has everything you have gone through from age 0 to now, how do you feel like that is really going to shape your parenting?
Oh, in the best and biggest and messiest way. You know, like, it's like,
Yes.
how do you even sum
Yeah.
that up? Because I think the most beautiful thing that I can think about from everything is how much I want to model
Mm,
emotional regulational skills to everyone, because all feelings are valid. All feelings are deserve to be
mm,
seen and heard and felt.
mm.
But the issue is with so many of us is that we just get stuck in them.
Yeah.
We get stuck in them, then we feel shame, then we
Yeah.
feel guilt,
Yeah.
then we neglect
Yeah.
things about ourselves that help, and we go into that hole and we don't know how to get out of it, because
Yeah.
like asking someone to figure out how to help themselves when they're in the darkest place is just not feasible. And so I think that all starts with emotional regulation, and helping label those feelings that you're
Yeah.
seeing kids have at such a young age, helping
Yeah.
them work through it, helping them
Yeah.
understand that, like, this is not fun. Like, this
Yeah.
does suck right now.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
don't have to paint a pretty
No.
picture of toxic perfectionism about
Yes.
every little thing that's happening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I say it all the time. My daughter has been my biggest teacher in that because
Mm,
I was very uncomfortable most of my life with emotions because I didn't know how
yeah.
to hold them. And
Well,
she
you
came
probably weren't
out,
taught.
no, no, of course, none of us are. And she came out like just being this expansion of emotions, like full spectrum. She's 16 now, and I'm just in awe of her. Every day I'm in awe of
Mm,
her because she has taught me that, like, this just sucks right now and this emotion's okay. And if we feel it, it will pass. And it was like,
mhm,
oh my gosh, like, holy moly. I have not been her teacher. She has been mine in that. And I think it's one of the most invaluable lessons. And I love that you shared that about,
mhm.
the next phase of being a parent and learning how to emotionally regulate and know that they're all okay in our
Yeah.
bodies.
Well, and I think, when we're both obviously very much aligned with the nervous regulation
Yeah.
piece of all of this, and
Yeah.
that is a ton of emotional regulation. But I think the biggest thing and this is a huge misconception, is that in order to be regulated, people think they have to be calm.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
In what world do
Yeah.
we live in, a
Yeah.
calm
Totally.
universe?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's the internal practices, it's the
Yeah.
internal messaging, it's your
Yeah.
mindset, it's how you talk to yourself, it's how you
Yeah.
validate what's going
Yeah.
on, like all of these things that we both were
Yeah.
modeled, and so many listeners, I'm sure, were
Yeah.
modeled. How are you
Absolutely.
supposed to learn it when you know emotional regulation? The best way to learn is by modeling.
Yeah, exactly. 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 I love that. So, what do you want to say? I think this is so important. I just did a post about this. What to the women out there that are like everything on the outside appears to be great,
Mhm,
right? And which almost makes it worse because you're like, I did all the things I was supposed to do, got the job, got the family, like did all the things. And yeah, I'm falling apart inside and I don't
mhm.
want to ask for help. I don't want to tell anyone. What do you say to that woman that may be listening right now? Like what is one thing she can do? What's the most important thing you think she needs to hear?
I think one of the most important things that she needs to hear is that the internal stress is something to respond to instead of ignore.
Mm,
So I don't necessarily mean be activated, like, and go off and like fly off the handle. I just mean listen more, like listen in,
mm,
because the woman who is doing it all, the woman who is like seemingly has it all together, oftentimes she is on autopilot. And if you're
mm,
on autopilot, you're not listening. You're not
mm.
listening to your needs. You're not listening to your body aches. You're not listening to your digestion. Like you're not listening to your heart, your anxiety. And truly, anxiety is just energy. That's why I like to say, too, it's energy within you. So I instead of being mad at your body, why not see it as a signal to something? And I think when we start seeing those internal happenings as signals instead of annoyances or
Yeah.
little like roadblocks, all of a sudden we do become one and in
Yeah.
alignment with ourselves. And we
Yeah.
can start thinking more mindfully about what's our next best step then.
Mm. Mm. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
I always tell people, I'm like, stress, when I first niched down, before I started working with like high achieving women
Yeah.
specifically, I really did kind of brand myself as this mindset and stress coach
Mm.
because it really was about changing your relationship to
Mm.
your stress.
Mhm. Mhm.
We all have it. It's not
Totally.
all bad,
Yeah.
but like we just need to know how to deal with our specific
Yeah.
stressors instead of just trying to always power through it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, first of all, thank you for being I've had so much fun with you. I like I said, I think so many people are going to relate. So many women because this is a lot of people out there. And I think
Truly.
again why I do this podcast is for people to see like if you feel like you're doing something wrong because it's pure chaos, it's because you're doing something right. Like this is the
Totally.
path, and for people to hear stories like yours where you're like, I was there and I'm still working through it. Like I'm not perfect. Guess
Mm-mm,
what?
mm-mm, mm-mm.
My ego doesn't like me to say that. And so, thank you for sharing all of that so, so much. I'm so excited about your pregnancy and
Thank you.
that being able to parent after you've worked through all of these things. For me, it was quite the
Mhm.
opposite. And I think for most through parenting actually is how I've awakened more to life. And so to see somebody that's done the work on themselves and now has this beautiful being coming in is just really, really exciting. It's really exciting. So thank you for that. I always like to end this with 3 questions. And
Okay.
so here we go, Lindsay.
I'm like, "Oh gosh, is this rapid fire?"
It's rapid fire. So first question is what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
This is from my therapist, and I
Mm.
love this, and this helps my people-pleasing tendency,
Mm.
and when I'm in an over if you're ever in an overthinking place, which so many high achievers are, so many women are, she says to me one time, she said, "Lindsay, I'm gonna say this to you in the most loving way, but you're not that important, sweetie. No Nobody thinks about you like you think about you." And I just like, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was like, that hit. Like that
Yeah.
landed so well for me. We are
Yeah.
always all so in our head. And to me, that is a piece of advice that I 1000% needed because
Mm.
I was always thinking about the text message that I sent and
Mm,
hadn't heard back in a couple hours, or I was thinking about the email where they didn't respond, or I was over analyzing a phone call or an interaction with a friend. I was always, again, like searching for me being the problem and me being the issue.
mm,
And she was just like, Lyndsay, you're really not that important in the grand
yeah,
scheme of things. Like,
yeah,
nobody
yeah,
thinks about you like you are
yeah,
thinking about you right now.
yeah,
I'm like, all
absolutely.
right, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you have heard of Michael Singer or read any of his stuff, but he always talks about like when we're in the midst of that storm in our heads is like to think like I am on a rock that's spinning in black space. Like really? And this is what I'm concerned about. It kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of that. Yeah.
It
Yeah. I
does.
love
It's
that.
like literally our
Yeah.
like we make way bigger deals out of things
Yeah.
that aren't necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. So second question is what is the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
I'm gonna say because of all of the doctor's visits that I have had, when I realized stress was the issue and they just said, exercise more. And the reason I say that is because being the stress expert, I would like to think of myself as stress, working out, exercising is stress on your body.
Mm,
And so if you aren't figuring out other tools and
mm,
outlets
mm,
to utilize, what happens if you have an injury? What happens if your cortisol's so
mm,
high and all you do is high intensity workouts? Like if you're
mm,
not mindfully figuring out
mm,
how to exercise properly or add in restorative movement as
mm,
exercise, you're actually working against yourself. So I hate walking into doctor's offices and then just saying two things to you: exercise more
mm,
or manage your stress.
mm.
Thanks. You gave me
Yeah.
zero handbook of how to do either of
Right.
these things for my
Right.
actual personal life,
Right.
So
Right. Right. Yeah.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So last question. If you could go back to the darkest of the dark in
Mm,
2017, I mean one of those
mhm.
moments that was the toughest, what would you say to that version of yourself now?
I would say that you are safe and innately valuable without the need for others validating that.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. And I know that's a hard one. Like, I think that's
Mm.
even hard. Even as I'm saying it, it kind of
Mm.
comes off the tongue a little like, "Ugh,"
Mm. Mm.
because it's still hard. We love
Mm.
external validation, right? It really
Mm.
helps us. But
Mm.
the biggest goal for me always, and for anyone's personal development,
Mm.
is to really work towards making that internal validation just as important.
Yeah. 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 Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, where can women find you that resonate and are like, "Yeah, I'm done doing the things that I'm doing and not getting anywhere and I'm ready to make a change." Where do they find you?
Totally. No, so I would say I'm most active on Instagram.
Okay.
Probably in there all the time. And
Yeah.
if I'm DMing you, if you get a DM from me, it's literally from me. Like
Yeah.
I love connecting with my community in there.
Yeah.
And my Instagram handle is at embody, EMBODY __YOU. And I'm really excited because I am launching a membership and mentorship option under
Awesome.
the Embodied Limitless Collective, and that's actually coming out next week. So
Wow.
I'm super thrilled for that. That will be
Yeah.
happening pre-mat leave, during mat leave, and beyond. So
That's
come into my
exciting.
circle.
Yes, yes. Have you this just popped into my head, so I wanted to mention it since we've talked a lot about like people-pleasing tendencies and not being liked. Have you ever read the book The Courage to Be Disliked?
No.
Life-changing. You must. You must
Okay,
read
the
it.
courage to be disliked. All right.
Game changer. Like blew my mind wide open. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it should be something that every single person on this planet is like required to read. It
Oh my
is.
gosh.
Yeah, yeah. It's truth.
That's great.
It's confronting truth. I will say that.
Mhm.
As I'm listening to it on audiobook. It's very confronting truth, but of course like that's the best kind cuz it
It
just gives you
is.
more. So, yeah, great book. Great book.
And you do
Audience,
usually
great
have
book.
you have to be at a place to be able to receive that message
Yeah.
too. And sounds like I'm at the place where I can definitely receive it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And it's cool for you or anyone that listens to it on audiobook. It's actually like a conversation between a philosopher and a kid. Like that's how they do it in the
Oh,
audiobook.
cute.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It's really
love
cool.
that.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Lyndsay. It's been so much fun. I so appreciate your authenticity and your realness. And this is exactly what this podcast is about and what we need more of, I believe. So thank you. I know you're doing great stuff in this world, and especially for women that need it. So
No, you're so welcome. And thank you all for listening too. And thanks for
yeah.
having me here.
Yeah. All right, everybody. That is a wrap. We will see you on the next episode. Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode. If this episode resonated in any way, I would love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with somebody who's in the thick of it too. If you want more behind the scenes, or you want tools to support you along your journey of messiness, come hang out with me over on Instagram at @mhollis_thesage. But most importantly, just remember, the mess is part of the magic.